The council hall echoed with a mix of heated voices as representatives from 47 different star systems debated fiercely. The humans' rapid expansion had sparked this latest uproar, a situation that had dominated their discussions for the past 3 months. Commander Saloon, perched high above on his platform, watched the chaos unfold. His fingers drummed against the console in front of him, a rhythm of rising frustration. As a Varani renowned for their composed nature, even he was finding it difficult to remain calm. A fierce disagreement had broken out between the Draknor and Chithari delegates. The Draknor slammed her clawed fist on the table, her sharp scales glistening in the harsh light, hissing her condemnation of humanity. "They're spreading uncontrollably," she spat. "They've already colonized 12 worlds, violating every rule we set. They've introduced foreign creatures and altered ecosystems. These reckless behaviors cannot be allowed to continue." The Chithari delegate, an insectoid with clicking mandibles, agreed. Humans come from a planet where every day is a battle for survival. The storms destroy entire cities. Their oceans are filled with predators larger than them. Their air is toxic, their diseases invisible but deadly. And yet, they fight to survive. It is this very survival instinct that makes them unpredictable and dangerous. They attempt to tame what they cannot control. They challenge the very laws of nature. Saloon raised his hand, signaling for silence. The room fell quiet as all eyes turned toward him. With over 2 centuries of military service, his voice commanded authority. He had spent weeks watching the debate unfold, analyzing every perspective, and now he was ready to make his move. "We have discussed this matter long enough," Saloon began, his voice steady but filled with a hidden edge. "Words and sanctions will not stop them. Humans will not cease their expansion just because we demand it. The time has come for action. We must show them that there are consequences for defying the council." A murmur spread through the chamber. Some delegates demanded to know what he meant by action, others clamored for military intervention. Still, some urged diplomatic measures. Saloon let the voices rise for 30 seconds before he activated the privacy field around his platform. Silence fell. With a few swift keystrokes, Saloon pulled up a restricted file, a file most delegates had no idea even existed. It was buried deep in the council's archives, marked with 17 warning symbols. The Ravagers, a weapon created 5 centuries ago during the Gas War, an experiment in biological warfare. They had been the ultimate tool to crush rebellion. Saloon hesitated for a moment before continuing. "I'm authorizing a military operation. 1 target, 1 mission. Let the humans understand that there are limits." And so, with a decision made, Commander Saloon set the wheels of fate in motion. The council was on the brink of irreversible action. But as his orders were transmitted, something more than just political tension was beginning to build. The true consequences of their actions were yet to unfold. What happens when a soldier is sent to deliver a message, but instead, a weapon chooses peace? The outcome may not be what anyone expected. As Commander Saloon authorized the operation, deep within the council's hidden facilities, technicians scrambled to prepare for the deployment. They were all too aware of the weapon they were about to unleash. Ravager Unit 7 had been dormant for years, held in containment, its once feared power now a relic of a dark past. The Ravagers were designed to be the perfect killing machines, biologically enhanced predators from the deadly world of Gas 7. They had been bred for strength, speed, and intelligence, devoid of fear and programmed with a singular purpose: to eliminate any target by any means necessary. Unit 7 had already seen combat on numerous occasions, and its scars told the tale of its brutal efficiency. But Saloon had no choice. The humans needed to be shown their place. If they continued to break council laws and defy the established order, the Ravager would be the tool of their reckoning. The Ravager's containment field flickered to life, and technicians prepared the drop pod that would carry it to New Meridian, a farming world on the fringe of human territory. The coordinates were set just 3 miles from the human's homestead, close enough to ensure the creature would reach its target before dawn. As the drop pod was sealed and launched, the technicians exchanged uneasy glances. None of them wanted to be part of this operation, but they had their orders. The Ravager, now a mechanical instrument of war, would be delivered silently in the dead of night. No records would be kept. No one would know about the mission except for those directly involved. With the Ravager on its way, the tension in the air was palpable. A deadly weapon designed for
total destruction was heading toward a seemingly peaceful world. But the story of the Ravager was not as simple as it seemed. Its mission was about to be challenged by something far more unexpected than anyone could have predicted. As the Ravager nears its target, the quiet of the night is interrupted by something far more unexpected than an attack. The human's quiet life on New Meridian is about to change forever. Daniel Reeves sat quietly in his farmhouse on New Meridian, the sound of rain hammering against the metal roof a constant companion. His aging cat, Butterscotch, nestled comfortably by the heating vent, her orange fur a familiar sight. New Meridian had been a peaceful place for him, a sanctuary far from the bustling, crowded worlds of Earth. Here the soil was fertile, the air clean, and the weather predictable. Daniel had made a decent life for himself, tending crops and living simply. But tonight was different. Butterscotch suddenly stirred, her ears flattening against her head, her tail puffing up in alarm. Daniel, sensing something was wrong, stood and approached the window. The rain outside was heavy, the darkness thick, but he saw nothing unusual. His perimeter sensors showed no sign of movement. Yet Butterscotch's reaction was unmistakable. Danger was near. Daniel grabbed his plasma rifle from the closet, checking the security system as he moved through the house. All the cameras were showing empty fields, and the motion detectors were quiet. His stomach twisted with unease. Butterscotch never reacted without a reason. He checked the southeast camera. It showed a strange shimmer in the air, like heat rising from the ground on a hot day. Something was distorting the image. A thought hit him. Military jamming. The hairs on the back of Daniel's neck stood on end. Someone was coming for him, and they didn't want him to know. He quickly scooped Butterscotch into his arms and ran to the safe room in the center of the house. It was designed to protect against storms and wildlife, a place where he could take refuge if things went wrong. As he sealed the door behind him and activated the emergency beacon, Daniel's mind raced. Who would be after him? He had no enemies, followed the rules, and was just a farmer. But the illegal earth animals he'd brought with him, specifically Butterscotch, were likely the reason. Outside, the Ravager moved through the rain like a shadow. Its obsidian scales glistened in the storm, water running off its body without a sound. Its 6 eyes were focused on the farmhouse, analyzing its target with chilling precision. It circled the building 3 times, its claws scraping against the walls. But for some reason, it didn't attack. It paused, hesitant. Inside the safe room, Daniel checked the security feed again. The motion detectors were going crazy, but he saw no clear target. His heart raced as he realized the Ravager was circling his house, waiting for something. Then he noticed a strange detail. The Ravager wasn't acting like a predator. It was confused. The Ravager, a weapon created to destroy, hesitated in the face of something it could not understand. What had been intended as a hunt was now something far stranger. But as the creature prowled around Daniel's home, a deeper connection was beginning to form, one that no one could have predicted. In the face of an unstoppable weapon, a quiet farmer and his cat have become the key to something no one saw coming. Can peace really be achieved between a human and a Ravager? Dawn broke slowly over the farm, casting a soft golden light on the fields that Daniel had spent so many years tending. Inside his safe room, Daniel sat with Butterscotch in his lap, trying to calm his racing heart. The Ravager was still out there, circling the house, but it hadn't attacked. It had been hours, and all the while Daniel's mind raced with questions. What was it doing? Why hadn't it moved to eliminate its target? Outside, the massive creature remained still. Its 6 eyes flickered, scanning the house, but it showed no signs of aggression. It was almost as if it was waiting, watching for something. The storm had passed, but the Ravager's presence lingered in the quiet morning. Daniel, heart pounding, made a decision. He knew what he had to do. Stepping cautiously out of the safe room, he kept his rifle pointed at the floor, Butterscotch still nestled in his arms. He approached the door, holding his breath. The creature hadn't attacked him or his cat, but it was still a dangerous weapon, capable of destroying him in seconds. The door creaked as Daniel opened it, the cold morning air rushing in. The Ravager's head snapped toward the sound, its 6 glowing eyes locking onto him. For a moment, time seemed to stand still. Daniel's pulse raced. Every part of him screamed to retreat, to run back into the safe room. But something deeper, something instinctual, urged him to stay calm. The Ravager didn't move. With slow, deliberate steps, Daniel walked out onto the porch. The creature remained motionless, its body tense but not attacking. Daniel stood still for a moment, trying to gauge its intentions. Butterscotch squirmed in his arms, and in that moment, she did something that would change everything. The old cat jumped down from Daniel's arms and walked right up to the Ravager. Butterscotch approached the massive creature with the confidence only a cat could have. She rubbed against its scales as though it was just another one of her companions, a harmless addition to the household. Daniel froze, watching in awe. The Ravager's reaction was something he hadn't expected. It didn't strike out in attack, as any weapon of its kind would. Instead, it hesitated, and then slowly, it lowered its massive head, as if considering the cat's gesture. It emitted a soft, rumbling sound, not unlike a purr. The sound vibrated through the air, deep and resonant. Daniel couldn't believe his eyes. This was a weapon designed to destroy, and yet, here it was, responding to a small earth animal with an unexpected gentleness. For the next few minutes, Daniel stood frozen, a witness to a bizarre interaction. Butterscotch continued to nudge the Ravager's massive leg, and the creature seemed to relax, lowering its head further as the cat continued her inspection. The purring grew louder, the rumbling sound more pronounced. The Ravager wasn't hunting, it was calming down. This was the moment Daniel realized that this wasn't just a monster sent to kill him. This was a broken, traumatized weapon, one that had been forged in endless battles, one that had never known peace. And somehow, in the presence of Butterscotch, it was finding it. The Ravager had been sent to New Meridian as a tool of destruction, but it had found something it hadn't been programmed to understand: peace. And in that peace, the human and the creature found an unlikely connection, one that would change both their fates forever. What happens when a weapon designed for destruction chooses a different path? The answer might just redefine everything. The Ravager's transformation has only just begun. The days that followed were marked by an uneasy calm. The Ravager, now named Shade by Daniel in a moment of dark humor, became a strange companion. The creature no longer prowled the yard with its menacing presence, but instead it moved quietly through the fields, following Daniel as he tended to his crops. Butterscotch, the elderly cat, had taken a liking to the towering predator, and the two animals, once natural enemies, had found a bond. Shade's presence, once a threat, was now strangely comforting to Daniel. Shade had ceased to be the weapon it was created to be. There was no more killing, no more hunting. Instead, it seemed content to simply exist in the company of Daniel and his cat. It was a transformation no one could have anticipated, especially the council that had sent it. But trouble was on the horizon. The inspectors who had visited weeks earlier returned with renewed authority. This time, they were not interested in asking questions. They had come for the Ravager. The council had received reports of the creature's presence on New Meridian, and the officials had been ordered to retrieve it to ensure it was properly contained or destroyed. When the inspectors arrived, Daniel was ready. He knew they wouldn't simply leave him alone. The council had its laws, and they would never overlook an unauthorized weapon, even if it had been abandoned for peace. Patricia Walsh, his neighbor, and one of the few people Daniel trusted in this harsh new world, arrived at the farm just before the inspectors. She had heard the rumors and seen the military transport ship hovering nearby. She knew something was wrong. "They'll try to take it," she said quietly as she stood with Daniel outside Shade, standing in the yard, its black scales glistening in the morning light. Watch the newcomers. The Ravager's 6 eyes tracked their every movement. Though it did not move to attack, Daniel nodded grimly. "I can't let them. Not after everything Shade has been through. Patricia glanced at the creature. It's more than just a weapon now, isn't it? You've tamed it, somehow. Daniel's expression hardened. I didn't tame it. I gave it a second chance. As the inspectors arrived, their white transport gleaming against the backdrop of the farmland, Daniel made his move. He stepped forward to meet them, trying to hide the nervous tension in his chest. He had prepared his story, just as he had when poachers came to his farm back on Earth. But this time, the stakes were higher. The inspectors, led by the stern-faced Inspector Graves, approached him with an air of authority. They knew what they were looking for, an illegal weapon that needed to be confiscated. But what they didn't know was how much Daniel had already protected Shade and how much he would fight to keep it. We've received reports about unauthorized military activity, Graves said, scanning the area. We need to inspect your property. Daniel nodded, keeping his calm. Feel free, but there's nothing here for you to find. The inspection was thorough. The inspectors swept their scanners across the yard, checked the perimeter, and examined the fields. They found nothing to back their claims of weapons activity. Shade remained in the shadows of the barn, hidden from their view. Butterscotch stayed inside as planned. After an hour, the inspectors were no closer to uncovering the truth. It was clear that they had no evidence. Their only lead had been the anonymous tip about illegal weapons testing, now nothing more than a rumor. The lead inspector turned back to Daniel. We will need to speak with your neighbors, she said, a trace of frustration in her voice. They've reported seeing unusual lights. They probably saw my emergency beacon, Daniel replied smoothly. Had a storm that night. Nothing more. Graves seemed ready to argue, but her companion, Yun, shook his head slightly. The evidence wasn't there. There was nothing for them to act on. We'll need to follow up with your neighbors, but for now, we'll leave. Of course, Daniel said, masking his relief. Feel free to talk to anyone. As the inspectors departed, Patricia approached Daniel, her face a mix of concern and reassurance. That was close, she muttered. It's not over, Daniel replied. They'll be back, but for now we've bought some time. Daniel had successfully stalled the inspectors, for now. But the real question remained. How long could he keep the truth hidden? As tensions continued to rise, it seemed like it was only a matter of time before the Council's forces returned, and with them would come the threat of destruction. But in this moment, the bonds of trust and loyalty held stronger than any weapon. The battle is far from over. With enemies closing in, Daniel must make a choice. Will he continue to protect Shade, or will he finally be forced to face the consequences of defying the Council? 2 weeks had passed since the inspectors left, and in that time, the atmosphere on New Meridian had shifted. Though the immediate threat had passed, Daniel knew it was only a matter of time before the Council would send more forceful reinforcements. The Ravager, once a weapon of mass destruction, had become an unlikely ally, an animal seeking refuge, and in turn offering something no one could have predicted. Peace, but peace, Daniel knew, was fragile. Shade had settled into the rhythm of farm life. The creature no longer prowled the fields with an air of danger. It moved quietly through the rows of crops, walking behind Daniel as he worked, its massive form both an intimidating presence and an unexpected comfort. Butterscotch, ever the queen of the house, had claimed Shade's side as her personal heating pad, curling up against the Ravager's warmth every chance she got. Despite the peace they had created, Daniel couldn't shake the feeling that everything was on the verge of collapse. The Council's influence was still present, and their operatives were relentless. He had hidden Shade, removed any trace of the Ravager's origin, and told everyone who asked that the creature was just another of New Meridian's unusual wildlife. But that could only last so long. One morning, as Daniel was finishing his work in the fields, he saw a transport ship descending from the sky. This time, it wasn't the inspectors, it was soldiers. Combat-ready and heavily armed, they moved with precision, their gear unmistakably military, and they weren't here for any casual inspection. Shade, sensing the danger, immediately became tense. Its 6 eyes locked onto the approaching soldiers. Its body coiling with readiness, Daniel stepped forward, trying to calm the creature, but there was little he could do. The soldiers had made their intentions clear. If they were there, they meant to take the Ravager by force. You need to leave, Daniel called out to them as they reached the property line. He kept his tone calm, but his body was taut with tension. He had dealt with pressure before, but this was different. This time, the stakes were higher than ever. The leader of the soldiers spoke through a speaker, her voice amplified and distant. "We are here for the Ravager. It is a military asset, and you are harboring it illegally. Surrender the creature, and no one will get hurt." Daniel knew this was the moment of truth. There was no going back now. He had already broken the law by sheltering Shade, and now he was being asked to give it up, to return it to the council where it would be reactivated for more destruction. He couldn't allow that. "You're wrong," Daniel said firmly. "Shade isn't a weapon anymore. He's not here to hurt anyone." The soldier's helmet tilted slightly, her voice skeptical. "It's a Ravager, a weapon designed to kill. We've been given orders to retrieve it, and we will." Daniel's heart raced.